Because with great power comes great responsibility.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Priority Holder, and today we're playing Powered Cube Draft, aka Vintage Cube Draft on Arena. And so it's an amazing time to be an Arena player. I'm a long time Vintage Cube content consumer, but this will be my first ever Vintage Cube Draft. So I'm extremely excited to hopefully sling some power. Let's see what we open. Right away we see a Time Twister. So it is technically power 9, though it's probably not in the top 9 most powerful cards in Cube once you throw in Soul Ring and Mana Crypt, but it is still a pretty strong card. Other than that, I'm also looking at Reanimate as far as power level. You could see that there's Atali, which is one of the best reanimation / cheat targets. There's also a Torsten, which is pretty good. No fetch lands in this pack. Those are the main things I'm looking at. I guess Hero Dominaria is also pretty strong. Honestly, I was mostly considering Reanimate and Time Twister, and I ultimately decided on Time Twister because of it's power 9, and I just wanted to go for it, And then we're immediately rewarded with Shield of the Apocalypse. So there's sort of a draw Punishers archetype available in Cube where you use draw 7s and then stuff like Hull Breacher, Narset, Shieldred to really punish your opponents with forced draws, So speaking of that, we opened Narset in this pack. So I was going to grab Narset, but then I'm wait a second. We also just got past a Minsc and Boo. And I think pound for pound, Minsc and Boo might be one of the strongest threats in Vintage Cube because it comes in play, it makes a 4/4 Trample Haste Hamster. And if they kill the hamster, you just make a new one and grow it again. If they kill Minsc and Boo, you still have the hamster. It just really powerful card. So I'm also hopeful to wheel Narset. So that was the thought, going for the power level right here. This pack doesn't have anything super helpful for us. I'm actually thinking about the passage as we're already dipping into 4 colors, assuming we're playing all the cards right here. So that's a consideration. There's also the green-white fetch, and that's ultimately what I take right here. It's not amazingly useful because it's only touching Minsc and Boo's colors right now, but this early in draft you can usually make the fetches work, So this pack is not incredible for us. I think the strongest considerations are Mana Confluence for just mana fixing, or Consult the Star Charts, or Expressive Iteration. So that's sort of what I'm looking at. Consult can sort of help you set up an A plus B combo, Time Twister plus Shieldred. I also was strongly considering Once Upon a Time, but wasn't certain we'd have the creature density to justify it. So end up choosing Consult the Star Charts, just a less color dense thing. So this pack's actually really nice. So a load of awesome blue cards. Jace, Duelist, Gitaxian Probe, and Treasure Crew are all cards would happily play. I actually ultimately end up choosing Fatal Push just because it's a premium creature interaction spell that with enough fetches and Revolt triggers can take down some larger stuff also. So and I'm hoping basically just to wheel a strong blue card from this pack, but blue is a known strong color in Vintage Cube, so who knows? But there's a chance that many strong blue cards, we get one of them back. So that was the justification. So not as much that's super on plan with this pack. There is a Grief, so I'm actually mostly a timeless content. It's the vintage format of Arena. So I'll go ahead and link a Grief deck right there. I like playing scam decks and stuff like that. I'm not taking Grief here because I'm not certain we'll get the density of black cards. But the green-red Surveil is pretty nice. It turns Windswept into a red source, and Surveils are usually pretty strong. So now this is a tough one. Snuff Out's strong, Preordained strong, but there's also a Flooded Strand, and we already have started dipping more into blue colors. Plus the more fetches we have, the more if we get a random Triome, then all of a sudden our colors could just be really online. So really tough to not take the Preordained there, but Flooded Strand seems pretty strong. Okay, so here's our original pack coming back. So this sort of staggered me for a second. Oh snap! Both the reanimation targets are still there. Obviously Reanimate was taken. That's really strong. But both Torsten and Atali are still there. So I was shoot, maybe I should speculate on one of those. I was thinking Atali, but then there's also the fetch lands, and then I was thinking about wait, we have 2 white fetches already. So if we take Godless Shrine, then all of a sudden those are black sources, so that was my justification there. This pack, there's an Underworld Breach, which is you should always pay attention to, but it seems like Bayou will be pretty strong. That turns Windswept Heath into it already is a black land with their other card, but it's just going to be helping our mana fixing. So this pack, it's unlikely any of these cards will make it. We just picked up like a green-black duel, so like the Cottage is not as useful. And I was thinking, like, of anything, like, Carnosaur is probably the one I'm, like, most likely to play, because it's, like, sort of like an inefficient removal spell, and, like, if you actually cast it, you can do some work. So, still trying to sort of figure out where we're going. We have pretty big options right now with how many fetch lands we have. Now, the Jetmir's Garden is really sweet. That's what I was talking about, like, when you get, like, a critical mass of, like, fetches, then all of a sudden, like, toss a couple Triomes in there, you can basically do whatever you want. We get Expressive Iteration back, which is really nice. That was honestly one of the cards I was like strongly considering taking. So very happy to wheel Expressive Iteration. And then Duelist of the Mind, like, we're not going to, don't seem like we have as much green and black going, or as much green. So I'm going to grab Duelist here. And then Blood Tithe is honestly pretty sweet. So happy with how that developed. So in this pack, honestly, it's a little tough. So would love to just like take like a strong dual land for our colors. You're hoping for something stronger than that, like in the start of a pack. It doesn't really seem like a Lion's Eye Diamond deck. Like we are nowhere near that. As far as like raw power level, there's Gut, which because of that late Blood Tithe and then like the Duelist, like we just picked up a couple low drops, and it's like, okay, Gut might be able to get there. Nadu was the other consideration, considering like we're already dipping in green and blue, and like, it just grab one of the combo pieces with it, then you're off to the races. So I was really torn between Nadu and Gut, and I decided, Nadu needs some help, whereas Gut, like if you just have enough creatures, Gut just does work. But don't love this. Like I guess you could maybe lean towards green with Ignoble, but so this pack, however, looks a lot nicer. So there's plentiful like dual lands to choose from of different varieties. There's Time Warp, there's Oculus, but the thing that's caught my eye is Memory Lapse, which seems like really good, like early interaction to just buy us time to like set up our draw punishers, And then speaking of draw punishers, we get past a whole Breacher, and as you can see me like snap that one off. Like I'm like really excited for that. So we only have one draw 7, but now we have 2 draw punishers, which is going to make things really interesting. So what do we choose here? The ones that are like most on my radar currently are Dig Through Time, Tursa, and like Coveted Jewel. Tursa is nice because just sort of like, it's like a beefy threat that can like, basically like double rummage when it comes into play, and then like possibly start like letting you flash stuff back, So it's pretty good. Like it's probably better suited in aggressive strategies. Coveted Jewel sort of works with the draw punishers also, because if they try and steal it from you and you have a Shieldred out, that they just get whammied when they draw some cards, or a Hull Breacher, they basically shouldn't even steal it, So that's sort of along the lines I was thinking. We don't have like any like fast mana, like a Mana Crypt or like a Mishra's Workshop, so I don't know, maybe I should have just grabbed the Dig Through Time. You could see me second guessing right at the end, like, should I just grab Dig here? But anyway, end up taking that. However, I'm about to snap up the Leyline Binding because we have all these colors, but then I'm like, wait, there's Echo of Eons, which can go with like our double draw punishers so far. Honestly, I didn't even pay attention to Thoughtseize. Like that's power level wise probably like the strongest raw power like there. So that should definitely be in contention. I just was missing it right there. But I'm just trying to sort of consider how strong Leyline Binding would be, and like, and also which one of these is most likely to wheel. But I decided just to take Echo because it's just too strong to get like a second draw 7 to go with our 2 punishers, So snap up the Taiga right here. Nothing else is like really aligning with what we're trying to do. And Taiga will help just make the mana situation really clean. Like Minsc and Boo's green source is going to be just free, essentially. All right, so some interesting stuff here. I'm mostly locked in on Tribal Flames and the Flame Slash as just sort of early interaction. Our curve is like sort of high right now, and we have like the land types for Tribal Flames, but like we're not really concerned about going upstairs. And I was just thinking about it, like, I think just the 1 mana is sort of like kill spell is just going to be stronger in this type of deck, so I just go for the Flame Slash. And then next pack, that's actually like a really clutch Zagoth Triome that gives us like, that turns all of our fetches into like blue and black, so like just a really good Triome to pick up to make the mana work. So like where this is going, like picking up that the whole Breacher and the Echo is really nice. Now the thing is, Echo needs more work than the other draw sevens, because you basically always want to like discard it and flash it back. But so far we have Duelist of the Mind, like has this sort of like draw discard triggers. We have Bloodtide Harvester, so we're getting there, but it's not like 100% solid yet. Now of this pack, I'm mostly looking at Galvanic Discharge and Oculus. But considering we already have like Flame Slash, Fatal Push, like Oculus seems like a pretty good threat. Like that like Echo needs some setup. Like we need to be able to fill our graveyard. So it's sort of speculative at this point. Like we are sort of amassing some fetch lands, that can maybe go the distance. This pack, mostly looking at Ghostfire Slice. Like we don't have any white cards we want to play, so like the white duel is not really helpful. The other one I was thinking about is the Goldspan Dragon. It can make treasures, can help cast our stuff. But I end up going for the Slice. Not 100% certain on that one, though. And then Tursa came back, as well as the Blue-White Surveil. And, like, now Tursa's looking way stronger that we have Echo and Oculus that, like, want to be in, want stuff in the graveyard. So, pretty happy to pick up that one. And then we managed to wheel Leyline Binding, which is the card I almost took in that pack initially. So, very happy to bring that back, and it's already free already. We have so many Triomes and fetches, and like free white sources, so like it's like a free to play. Gonna grab, hoping to play like neither of these cards. Legion Extruder is cool. I'll go ahead and link a Timeless deck with Legion Extruder and Corey Steelcutter actually. So if you're into that kind of stuff, all right, this pack. So what jumps out immediately is Brainstorm. But there's also a Misty Rainforest. Like those are like the most cards that fit this strategy the most. So I'm looking at like our fetch land count for Brainstorm, and I don't know. Like I'm also trying to like juggle like a ton of colors right here, and Misty Rainforest would just be like really strong. Like just basically with all the Triomes and duels we have, it counts as like every color. So I'm gonna take it, though it really sucks to pass Brainstorm right there. And then totally, you could see me going crazy right here. We got past an Ancestral Recall. So who needs Brainstorm when you can get the real deal? So the opponent must have had a double power pack or something. So after some like pretty lame opens, that was like a really, really huge thing. And then we get past Wheel of Fortune. And so I'm like, okay, all right, let's really get in there. So that's our third draw 7. And so now we could have like real coherent plan. So you can see me ditch the Coveted Jewel. Like that's probably not going to get in there at this point. Like it was really tentative at best the way it was heading. So just checking like how many lands we have in our pool, like trying to make sure we have enough playables and everything. So the Triumph catches my eye, but then there's also a Dak Faden. So Dak Faden's strong, like it can loot, it can steal artifacts and stuff, but the thing is, it's actually target player draws 2, discards 2, so it works with the draw punishers. You can, if you have a Hull Breacher in play, for example, and you plus on your opponent, you make 2 treasures and they discard 2 cards, which is insanely powerful. So really happy to pick up Dak Faden. And in this pack, I'm mostly looking at Thieving Skydiver as like an artifact stealer. Get Lost is also tempting as sort of just like unconditional removal for multiple permanents. But at the same time, there's also the Blue-Red Surveil, and we've sort of morphed into a blue-red base over time. Like we're sort of touching black, but like our core colors are blue and red, and so like a Blue-Red Surveil would be like really strong for us with the fetches, and just because it's like on color. So gonna go ahead and take that and see what the next pack brings us. So very happy with how this is developed. All right, so I was looking at Tishana's Tidebinder, which is a card I like to play in Timeless. Like it's just really good, stifling fetches. Like it's just really powerful. But there's still a Wooded Foothills in this pack, which is just any sort of fetch we can keep scooping up will just like make our mana like perfect. So I'm looking at our color breakdown here. And because like I really like Tidebinder, but the thing is like we're already loaded with the 3 drops, as you can see. And so just locking up another like important fetch land seems like really strong. All right, so Dress Down, Lelia, but there's also Stock Up and Ponder and Chain Lightning, which are all super strong. We have so many threes, so we're just gonna grab Ponder right here. Like just a cheap way to get the game rolling, draw into some lands. Stock Up's really strong, but just seemed like Ponder made sense right there. So there's a strong Triome and there's Fire Covenant, but then there's also Duress, and it just seems like Duress, like we're already playing black, like it's strong against the sort of non-creature decks. Like we have a lot of creature removal, so it'd be nice to have some more mileage against control and combo. So that was the rationale for that Duress pick right there. Now this pack, I have my eye on Seasoned Pyromancer because we have Echo and Oculus, but decided ultimately to take Burst Lightning just to get some more low curve plays and just trying to survive. And then the blue-black Surveil would be really nice, but I take a Braid because it's just nice. It can pop an artifact, it can kill a little creature, it does a whole lot. So it would be really nice to have that blue-black Surveil, but we already have multiple Surveils, so you only want a certain number of tap lands anyway. Going to take Chandra Torch of Defiance here. Like it's, it's fine, but it's probably not going to make the deck at this point. And then we get past a pick 12 Vampiric Tutor, which is incredible because we're combo decking. We're trying to assemble A plus B, draw 7 plus Punisher. So like we'll definitely play the Vampiric Tutor. So that was like really, really awesome to pick up. So you can see me get the Carnosaur out of there. Relic is nice for all of our colors, but like we're super loaded on threes. Like it'd be nice if this talisman like basically was any talisman except a white touching one, so gonna go ahead and take the Harvester for the sideboard and just figure out how we build this. But very happy with how this is shaping up this far. Gonna have to make some cuts to figure out like the final build. So you can see we're at 43 out of 40 cards. It does seem like a 17 land deck. So the question is, what doesn't make sense in here? And there's a lot of things, like obviously like our draw 7s and our Punishers, those are there. Minskaboot, like interaction. So I'm going over like the creatures here to see like what's strong enough to like justify. And Ghostfire, like we picked up a lot of other interaction, and like it's not always getting cost reduced, and we're probably never really be going face with it. So decide to cut Ghostfire Slice. Like we got a Braid, we got Burst Lightning, and we got some overlap with that. So that's one cut. We still have 2 more things to cut. And also trying to look at the color situation right here. Somehow, we ended up with 4 fetches in this deck, which is incredible. And there's only 10 in the whole cube, of the actual factual fetch lands. So pretty happy about that. And looking at what else can probably go, and ultimately decide that Gut True Zealot is cuttable in this build. We just don't have, we have like almost no artifacts besides the token from Blood Type Harvester, and like very few creatures, and it's much better suited in like more assertive decks, especially if you have like extra fodder. So our deck is just not really equipped to like get the most out of Gut. So I'm gonna put that in the sideboard. Now it's down to the last cut. And I picked up an Animate Dead at one point because I'm like, oh, this could be a valuable way to like get back a Hull Breacher or a Shieldred just to keep the combo online. But we have like a really low creature count and like not that many ways to like really like leverage it. Like you can like take something out of the opponent's graveyard, but on it ultimately decide to cut Animate Dead. We definitely don't want a Plains in there. Like the white source is basically free. So the next thing I'm going to like just fix up the mana base. So you have to like set your fetch lands aside and like your fetchable duels and triomes and like calculate how many colors you want and everything. And then our mana base is going to be excellent in this. Like we don't need to run any forests, like we have plenty of green sources. The thing that will be sort of tricky is the double black Unshielded. Everything else is going to be pretty much fine, but hitting double black Unshielded is going to be a little tight. So that's what I'm trying to adjust for here. So at first I go for 2 swamps, 1 mountain. I think in the end I switch to 2 mountains, 1 swamp, just because we have way more red cards than black cards. So this is going to be the final configuration of going with 1 swamp, 2 mountains, 4 islands. and heaviest on the blue and the red sources right here. Just to, that's like where our card draw and our interaction colors are. And then we could pick up black and the other colors as needed is sort of the idea. So this is going to be the deck that we jump into battle with, and pretty excited for this. Like, I mean, it's hard to ask for more for your first Vintage Cube draft than getting past an Ancestral Recall, So 2 pieces of power, no fast mana though. So like, I'm a little worried about getting like overrun by like cracked starts in the opponent. So going to jump into the first game. All right. And this hand, the opponent's going first. This hand seems pretty good. So our Windswept Heath can get our Zagoth Triome, and then all of a sudden we're like basically locked on all of our colors. All right, Mountain from the opponent into Figure of Destiny. So most likely like an assertive red deck. Going to just play the fetch and pass. Going to not crack it yet in case they have like a Strip Mine or something. Want to protect ourselves. So Figure of Destiny has different level ups, so it's going to turn into a 2/2 right now. And we're going to have to see what the opponent's doing. So they're just going to attack. We're going to wait and see if they follow up with anything else. And they play a Kellen. So appears to be mono red that we're facing. So don't love to be on the draw against mono red, but we're going to get the Zagoth Triome and feel pretty good about that. So the question now is, do we hold up Memory Lapse or do we slam Blood Tithe Harvester? Now, considering they basically have 2 level up creatures, I don't think it's wise to hold up Memory Lapse because they can just pour their mana into their creatures and then start destroying us. So I'm going to throw the Harvester out there as a potential roadblock, and they're just going to Chain Lightning it. So like that was to be expected anyway, but at least they have less mana to pour into their stuff, and they might not even cast anything on their turn had we just passed with Memory Lapse up. So we'll have to see. And trying to figure out like which ones. So they need 3 mana for the next level of Figure, so they end up just going for the next level of Kellen, which gives it sort of like a pseudo Ragavan ability. So except it pulls off their own library. So they weren't able to capitalize on it. I'm going to pass with Hull Breacher up. So we have the Wombo combo. We have Hull Breacher, Wheel of Fortune locked and loaded. The question is, can we survive? All right, so they're warping out a Nova Hellkite. So my hesitation here. So we have the Memory Lapse, of course. But I'm trying to think, like, how much damage can we sustain right here? Like, can we tank all this damage to execute our Hull Breacher Wheel combo? And will we have enough life afterwards to, like, beat them? Because they're going to have quite a lot of stuff on board. And I decide, all right, I think we can tank all this. So they're crashing for 8 damage right here, which is quite a lot. And if they have a land drop, and I don't love seeing the Dragon's Rage Channeler. So, okay, so thankfully it's a tap land. It would have added another thing to the board. All right, so the Hellkite's going to disappear, and I'm going to toss out Hull Breacher. And so the opponent can go land Nova, next turn. So we have to make sure we can actually deal with everything they're doing. So we're gonna fire off Wheel of Fortune, and then just whammy them with Hull Breacher. So we get a ton of treasures and drew some amazing cards. So we have Oculus with the stocked graveyard thanks to Wheel of Fortune, and Shieldred and Burst Lightning. So I'm gonna put Oculus out there because it makes multiple blockers, including a hefty flying blocker, so that protects us from the dragon. And then deciding what to do next. So we still have a land drop, so I'm just gonna pop one of their creatures with the Burst Lightning. I'm gonna take down a Figure that seems like the most threatening. So pop it with Burst Lightning and just go basic Swamp, slam Shieldred. And then we can also fire off Echo Beyonds, at our leisure. The thing is, Hull Breacher and Shieldred sort of work against each other a little bit, but this game's basically locked up, so Oculus is going to create a blocker, we just grab, our choice between 2 islands. We have to see if the opponent can muster anything. It's gonna have to be insanely good. Yeah, Shadow Spear is just not gonna be good enough. So the opponent is fighting the good fight, but it's looking grim for them. And then we happen to just rip a Fatal Push anyway. So just mathing it out, we actually have exactly 14 points of damage. So I'm just going to Fatal Push down Kellen, and that's going to allow us to just crash in for lethal right here. So it was just basically a complete just Hull Breacher win right there. Hull Breacher plus Wheel. So on to the next game. And this hand looks pretty excellent. Like we have both Memory Lapse and a Braid, and one of our Draw Punishers ready in Hull Breacher. So, and the Hull Breacher is super powerful because, you know, if the opponent tries to cast a Brainstorm and like you can just whammy them with Hull, like it can just absolutely annihilate people. So as the opponent drops the Voldaren Epicure, if you enjoy Vintage Cube, please Arena of the Ancients the like button. So we're gonna crack our fetch. We have our Zagoth Triome in hand, so I'm just going to get the Surveil. And that was honestly a consideration I didn't talk about, is whether you play the Surveil, where you play the Triome or a fetch land. And I wanted just to get the Surveil going. So that was why I played turn 1 fetch. But that may come back to bite us because now we have a Minsc and not necessarily an untapped land on 4. So we're going to hold up a Braid / Memory Lapse and feel really good about our life choices right now. So opponent's crashing with Epicure. This is just a very safe feeling right now. So let's see what the opponent does. Alright, so they play a FOMO. An awesome card. I really love FOMO. So I'll go ahead and link a FOMO deck that I've played in Timeless. Like, it's just a sweet card. So I'm going to Memory Lapse it. Like, the opponent it denies them like their next draw. And we might be able to just whammy them with Hull Breacher with the FOMO ETB on the stack. So that's the idea. So we just drew Echo of Eons. So that's going to be cool if we can get that in the graveyard. Alright, so they're crashing with Epicure. I'm hoping to just get them with their FOMO ETB right here. So they're tapped out of red, so it's not going to get blasted by Lightning Bolt in response. So with FOMO ETB on the stack, going to flash in Hull Breacher and try and just get them right here. And I'm like completely shocked when they fire off a Dark Ritual. I'm like, what the heck? Like, what's going on? And then they crack the Blood Token into a Hull Breacher. And at first I'm like, what is going on? But then I realized, okay, it makes sense. They were trying to trigger Revolt so they can kill it with the Fatal Push. And then they entombed a Griselbrand. So that was like a pretty awesome sequence from the opponent right there. However, we got our treasure token from Hull Breacher, which was all we needed to drop Minsc. So we're going to make our Hamster and dump some counters on it. And we're close to just hard casting Echo, but like we have no Hull Breacher anymore. So the question is, do you attack with the Hamster or you just hold back and decide we don't really need to defend Minsc because they can't currently kill it very easily. Well, Bitter Triumph takes it down, so they crash with their creatures, and then, but I'm feeling pretty safe. Like we have a Braid, like, and then Expressive Iteration shows up, and that seems pretty good. Like we can use one of our Expressive Iteration zones to like play a land drop. Alright, so we have Leyline Binding as an option, except for the fact that we don't have any white sources. So I'm going to put Fatal Push into hand, Leyline Binding into the library, and the Bayou into exile. So we can get our land drop for the turn and hold up Fatal Push / a Braid. So the question is, do we Braid the FOMO or do we Fatal Push it? Like, which spell is going to be most relevant later on? And honestly, like it's a hard choice. I decide to go for Fatal Push because that allows us to hold up Consult as well. So that was ultimately what won out. I'm not entirely certain which one has more relevance later on, but yeah. Opponent plays Emperor of Bones, which can be pretty dangerous considering they have a Griselbrand in their graveyard. So I go ahead and just Braid it right here. I think I jumped the gun. I think I should have let them exile something, because let's say they exile the Griselbrand and then I hit it with the Braid. Well, then their Griselbrand's just exiled forever, So I think I should have let them pick something to exile first. So I was about to fire off Consult, but then I'm like, wait a sec, I could just kick it later on. So let's just play Blood Type Harvester. And this does two things. It lets us have the Blood Token to dump Echo into the graveyard, and still hold up Consult without the kicker, So that was like the thought there. We're pretty far ahead, so just need to make sure we don't die to something crazy. And then the opponent persists back the Emperor Bones. This is a big problem right here for us, because Emperor Bones is, when it goes to beginning of combat, is going to exile something, and it has an adaptability, so it can exile the Griselbrand, use the adaptability, and then put Griselbrand into play with haste, hit us for a ton of damage, draw some cards, or gain some life, or possibly draw some cards. Like, it gets ugly real fast. So what I'm doing is trying to figure out, like, do I have any instant speed removal that can take down Emperor of Bones, like, in response, you know? So going to fire off regular Consult right here just to see what we find, and we find a Vampiric Tutor and a bunch of lands. So that was pretty lame. So the opponent is going to get their Emperor and presumably Griselbrand. Now the thing is, with Emperor Bones, you have to be careful. You have to hold control if you want to do it like, if you want to exile the thing and then bring it back so that it's still able to attack. Otherwise, like, it's going to pass right into declare attackers, you know. So you have to hold full control to make this work. And right now I'm assuming the opponent is going to do that, and just hit us with like a giant Griselbrand. But the thing is, they end up passing the turn. So I don't know what they're planning it to do, but I think that was a tactical mistake by the opponent. I think they should have just Griselbranded us. And it's especially strong because it has a -1 counter on Emperor Bones, so they can actually adapt it 2 times. So we're gonna fire off Vampiric Tutor on our upkeep, because I want to get a removal spell for Emperor Bones. I don't want them Griselbranding us next turn. And the thing is, I'd preferably like to kill Emperor for the reason I just stated, that they're going to be able to adapt it multiple times. So going to take the Flame Slash with the Vampiric Tutor so that both Emperor Bones and Griselbrand are dealt with. So they're going to put Griselbrand into play, but it's going to just be a blocker right now. So it just means we can't attack this turn, which is not a big deal. So we can, however, just Ponder, and we draw some pretty nice stuff. Like, we just need to wait out their Griselbrand. It's going to exile itself at end of turn, you know. So trying to figure out what to keep. Like, honestly, Burst Lightning at their low life total is pretty good. I think I ordered it wrong though. I should have gone Burst Lightning Duress in case they try and like hold up a spell their next turn, you know. So Griselbrand disappears. We're still at like a very commanding position. All right, the opponent passes, and this is where Duress would have been nice, but I'm just holding up kicked Burst Lightning. Okay, so the opponent's going to discard Harvester, take down our creature, but they're still in big trouble. Like, they take a ton from the hamster, we Burst Lightning them, and they're just super dead. So that's enough for that one. Moving on to the next game. Now this hand has a lot of potential. It only has 2 mana sources though, so that is pretty tough. But the fetch gets us a Zagoth Triumph, so we will be able to at least cast our blue spells. Alright, so opponent's going to fire off a Gitaxian Probe, and they're going to know exactly what we're trying to do when they see Hullbreacher plus Shieldred, you know. So we're an open book to them. Alright, they're going to Surveil. We're going to grab our Triome. And one thing about playing these Vintage Cube games is it's really nice to take a screenshot of your deck on like a different app, and that way you can toggle from Arena to that, because you want to see like what your tutor targets are, what fetchable lands you have left. Like, it helps to have like a visual copy of your deck somewhere you can like alt tab to, you know. So opponent's going to put an Eternal Witness on the stack. I'm going to memory lapse this. I actually don't think that's correct. And these are all previously recorded games. I have the benefit of hindsight for some of these insights, but I think that was a bad move even in the moment because we needed a land so badly. So I'm going to consult trying to find a land. We end up seeing 2 pieces of power, so that's good, except we miss a land drop. So with Ancestral, we should be able to find it. Now, opponent's going to E-Wit back Gitaxian Probe, and let me know in the comments, like, what do you think of Vintage Cube, and are you interested in seeing more videos of it? So, alright, the opponent still knows exactly what we're doing. Now, we can Vampiric Tutor and Ancestral Recall. It seems like overkill. Like, we're bound to draw a land at this point, you know. So, and we end up drawing 3 lands. So, going to just fire that off. The thing is, the opponent has us under like no pressure, except for the pressure of them like having a ton of mana sources, you know. So, going to just play a tap Godless Shrine. We are like sort of choked on mana right here. That was one reason to just fire for Vampiric Tutor, because we're going to be forced to discard, but it's honestly not the worst because that's pushing us toward Oculus, you know, like being able to exile enough cards. So, alright, opponent drops a fetch, crashes in with the Eternal Witness, and passes. So, what do you do right here? Trying to figure out. So, we have a Vampiric Tutor at our disposal, and so we could try and get like a Time Twister or a Wheel of Fortune right now into our hand. There's a number of things, but actually I was thinking about it. we really want to fire off this Vampiric Tutor because it adds cards to the graveyard for your Oculus, and it seems like Duress is like the best thing we can draw. So we put a Duress on top because that's going to make sure we have plenty of cards in our graveyard, and it might clear the way for us resolving something, you know. So going to Duress them, and it was really suspicious of Mystic Confluence, like just multiple blue sources, 5 mana up. Let's see what they have. And it turns out that was a Soul Read, like if they really did have Mystic Confluence. So they're going to counter the Duress and bounce their Eternal Witness. So Duress did its job. It forced the counter spell, and now the coast is clear for Hull Breacher. I was hoping to wham them in the Hull Breacher if they drew any cards, but they didn't draw any. So I'm going to just put an Oculus into play at this point because it's just a threatening card. Now we know they're going to be able to Eternal Witness back probably Mystic Confluence, so like Oculus might get bounced, but it's going, you know, the longer they leave it in play, the more value it's going to generate, you know. So alright, so they're going to Eternal Witness something back, and they ultimately choose Mystic Confluence, so that makes sense. And that gives them the defensive play against what we have going on. Alright, so there's Noble Hierarch. So what do we do now? We could slam a Shielder, though it's just risky with counterspell mana up, you know. So it's our Expressive Iteration is going to get remanded, which is annoying because that uses up all of our blue mana for the turn. So decide, alright, well, I'm just going to crash in and see how much damage we can deal. Alright, so the opponent is going to just trade off the Eternal Witness. We're okay with that. We deal 5. And just going to play the Taiga and pass. But then I was like, wait a second, should I kill the Noble Hierarch? So I'm counting up their mana. I'm like, you know what, like, it's going to just constrain their options. Like, there's nothing else in play. Like, I'm just going to Fatal Push their Mana Dork and try and give them fewer options. So that was the rationale right there. I almost didn't do it, but I'm like, all right, let's just take out the Hierarch. So we're going to stick a Dack Fayden under there in case they bounce it, and then we can have Dack Fayden. All right, so opponent plays and cracks the fetch land. And they tap out for a Time Twister, which was actually really clutch. We killed the Noble because they could have used Mystic Confluence to bounce our stuff and then Time Twistered. So basically they could have raft us with that. So opponent's going to follow up with the Quantum Riddler, but they're honestly in pretty big trouble. Like, we have 7 points of damage. Alright, so they redrew Hierarch. But the thing is we drew Minsc and Boo and Leyline Bind. So we have like really stacked. So like we could get got by like a Spell Pierce right here. So I'm trying to think about what to do. And so I'm leaving the white source open for Leyline Binding right here, to making sure the auto tapper doesn't screw us. So I'm going to play Minsc, and yeah, the opponent's seen enough at that point. So on to the next one. Pretty happy about this hand, except no red mana. So sending it back. This hand looks way better. The hard part is what to put away. So we still don't have red mana, though. Ponder goes like a long way towards helping solve that. So we have like all red cards, no red sources. So it honestly doesn't seem even worth it to keep all these lands because they don't cast any of the spells in our current, at our current disposal. So I think about it for a while. I'm like, okay, let's put the Godless Shrine back and just really lean on this Ponder to get us out of trouble right here. All right, playing to the opponent, and we end up just ripping a red source, So turned out okay. Still gonna play the Triome just to unlock Ponder. We could still possibly do Blood Tithe next turn. All right, so the opponent's gonna play a Voice of Victory, and they're on red-white lands, so they're probably an assertive deck. Going to take down Voice of Victory. It's an exceptionally strong card. It punches in for a lot and basically shuts down like all counter spells and instant speed stuff. So, all right, the opponent's gonna follow up with Cosmic Grand Zenith, and I've actually played Voice of Victory before. I'll go ahead and link a Timeless deck featuring that card. Ancestral Recall is really good, so going to use that to see what we can find. And drew a bunch of lands, which we're honestly okay with. So the question is, do we play Duelist or Blood Tithe Harvester? Opt for Blood Tithe Harvester, though there is an argument for playing Duelist of the Mind, but yeah, I'm actually not sure what's strongest in this situation. So the opponent is going to slam Comet, which is like an unset card, but it has like a random Planeswalker ability. You roll a dice and you get random stuff, and it has the potential of sort of going off and going infinite, So they're going to nuke our creature, and we're back to the drawing board. So Alright, we have 2 different draw 7s at our disposal. Gonna just lead with Ponder. Probably, you know, trying to decide if it's worth it to play Duelist of the Mind for it. It seems to make more sense to play Ponder first and just see what we can find. Maybe we find something better. Alright, so that's pretty interesting. Sheoldred goes insanely well with both Wheel of Fortune and Time Twister. So, and we already have the black sources locked up. So I'm trying to figure out how to order this Ponder. There is an argument, like maybe the opponent's playing Hand Disruption, like you want to keep Sheoldred on top of the deck and just draw Expressive Iteration right now. But opt to not shuffle, leave Sheoldred on top, and draw into Expressive Iteration. So, trying to figure out what to do. Like, should we play the fetch to shuffle away Expressive Iteration? Seems like a reasonable card to draw. I'm gonna just play Duelist and pass. Now I'm pretty hopeful about pulling off the Sheoldred plus draw effect in this matchup. Like, they're not gonna have any counter spells, though if Comet keeps nuking everything, then maybe Sheoldred will bite the dust. At least it's losing loyalty though, so. Alright. So our creature dies, and we draw Expressive Iteration. So it seems like the opponent's like running out of gas. Like maybe they're holding up some like creature removal or something like that, you know. So we'll have to see. But I'm just gonna slam Sheoldred, play the fetch, and let's see if the opponent can stop us. Otherwise, they're in for a world of pain. All right, so Comet ends up making some squirrels. We don't really care about that. In fact, we're just happy that was like the not very impactful mode. Gonna crack the fetch, and going to grab the card we had on top. Actually, gonna get the Surveil and see what we can find. Burst Lightning. So this is actually really interesting. So I'm looking at their life total. They're at 18. If we hit them with the draw 7, that's 14 points of damage off Sheoldred. So if we just Burst Lightning them also, then they die on their draw step from Sheoldred. That's 18 damage right there. So going to fire off the Burst Lightning before our draw 7 so it doesn't disappear on us. So just vanilla 2 points of damage upstairs. And then the question is whether we Time Twister or Wheel of Fortune them. I'm honestly not sure which one is like better in this scenario, but I'm just going to Time Twister. And the opponent can theoretically like draw into something that kills Sheoldred right here. You know, but I just decide just a YOLO for it. So the opponent falls to 2. I'm going to duress them to possibly stop something they might be able to protect themselves with. But yeah, the opponent has nothing, and we move on to the next game. Alright, this hand pretty awesome with multiple blue spells. We have a means of casting Duress, but it's going to take some time with like fetching a tap land. Dack Fayden seems pretty strong. Alright, so it looks like another assertive white deck. I end up trying to figure out what to put under the Lightstall tax. End up picking Duress because not only are we going to like pretty far away from casting it, it's also like a fairly efficient card that like if it's taxed a little bit, it's not gonna be the end of the world. So, and we're gonna have to like fetch a tap black source for it anyway. So I don't want to exile Echo because then we can't discard it and unlock the flashback, you know. So gonna just slam Duelist right here. And just planning on doing like a turn 3 Dack Fayden. Maybe we could steal like a Mox for them depending on what they play. So we'll have to see what the opponent follows up with. Alright, Split Skin Doll. Duskmourn Draft Classic right there. Able to just draw a card. And Duelist is holding off their stuff. Minsc and Boo is incredible right here. Always an incredible draw. You could see why like I like snagged that card when it showed up like pack 1 pick 3 because it is just so strong. So now we're having to choose between getting a black source and a green source right here. And decide, even though we have more black cards, like we have Minsc and Boo in hand. So I want to make sure I don't mess that up and just lock up the green source right now. Going to Dack Fayden on us. And it's like a nice little combo with the Duelist of the Mind. I'm going to discard Echo, of course, to get that in the graveyard and pitch like an island. And, when Dack draws his cards, like Duelist punches in even harder. The interesting thing is Duelist also combos with the draw 7s because it can punch in for like tons of damage in the air, like 7-8 damage as a flyer, so pretty fun little interaction there. Right, so opponent's gonna attack Dack Fayden. We're just gonna snap block one of them, keep Dack alive. Alright, so Dack is still around. could still steal the split skin doll if we want to with Dak's ability. So trying to figure out what to do. Going to just play and crack the fetch. The opponent must have a clunky hand, or they're holding up some sort of interaction right now. Gonna grab the Bayou, lock up the black source, and trying to figure out, you know, sequencing here. Do you plus Dak first, or do you Minsc and Boo first? Decide just for due diligence to plus Dak first. See what we can find. And wow, that was pretty good. So, gonna get rid of the Leyline Binding. We don't have any white sources at the moment. And then trying to figure out between Consult and like Blood Type Harvester. Fatal Push is gonna be incredible in this matchup, so we're definitely keeping that. I'm gonna put a Minsc and Boo in the stack. Oh, and we get Mana Tithe, so that really sucks, but we're still not in like the worst shape because we have Fatal Push plus Harvester. Like, we can rumble a bit. Don't love seeing the Spider-Man come down though. So the opponent had a bunch of stuff they were holding up, it turns out, and then they slam a Gideon, ally of Zendikar. So I assume they're gonna make a knight, but they actually just emblem it right away to basically get like a Glorious Anthem emblem. So they're going to crash in and make sure they send enough to take down Dak Faden. So they're sending 2 creatures at Dak, 1 at our face. We're gonna let Dak die. So that was a nice little turnaround from the opponent right there. Alright, so Expressive Iteration was our draw, and it seems pretty good in this scenario. So trying to make sure, think through all the options right here, because also just Blood Type Fatal Push is like not the worst combination of plays either, you know. So going to just start with Expressive Iteration to see what we find, and then we see Hull Breacher and a Braid. So we have the Echo of Eons locked and loaded in our graveyard. So, but I want to keep hitting land drops, but at the same time, like, wait a second, we could put Hull Breacher into our hand, Island back in the deck, a Braid in exile, and just take down the Spider-Man with the Braid, just to take the heat off our life total, and set up Hull Breacher plus Wheel a little bit down the line, you know. And we still have multiple ways to like interact with their creatures left. So that was the path that I took. It does suck that we're like not hitting our land drop this turn, but it seems like really important to like get to use a Braid here and hold on to the Fatal Push. So gonna Braid, especially that it's like a shields down moment, like they can't use the Spider-Man. So we're going to get a Duelist of the Mind Tree. You can't forget that it gets to draw cards when you commit crimes, you know. So we're going to get to draw something even better than like the Blood Type Harvester. We draw a Flame Slash. So now we have like tons of interaction to like battle the opponent with, and have still pretty healthy life total, all things considered. All right. So let's see what the opponent responds with. Been interesting back and forth. Alright, we don't have any good blocks, so they're going to smack us for 6 damage. You have to see what other nasty thing they're going to follow up with. Alright, so they have a Kytheon and Sword of Fire and Ice. Okay, so our hand thankfully lines up pretty well against what they're doing. So we know we're going to like Fatal Push and Flame Slash and Hull Breacher. Decided to lead with the Flame Slash, and we're gonna get a Duelist trigger right here. So we're gonna draw, and I'm gonna go ahead and discard the Shock Land because we just don't want to like let them surprise kill us out of nowhere. You know, they have like a Glorious Anthem going on. You know, just want to do our due diligence. So take down one of their creatures, and the thing about Fatal Push is that it cuts through Sword of Fire and Ice. You know, so like it gets through the pro red, pro blue. So that's why I want to hold on to that. So now we can just hold up Hull Breacher / Fatal Push against them. So, and it makes sense, the opponent's going to go for the equip right here. So they're going to equip the Sword of Fire and Ice. This is actually a mistake by me. I'm going to just pop the creature in response. However, they have enough mana just to re-equip it. So this is a crazy tough choice, but I think the correct call is to discard Ancestral Recall, which is going to set off alarm bells from the opponent. They'll be like, what the heck do they have in hand that they're going to discard Ancestral, you know? So turns out we have bigger dreams right now. Hull Breacher plus Echo. So I think I should have just held on to the Fatal Push till it was like declare combat, The one upside of letting them hit us with sword is that we can Hull Breacher in response. You know, once they chose their damage target, but it is cutting it insanely close, letting them hammer us with the sworded up creature. You know, so but the opponent's tapped out, so like basically shields down, so we can hammer them with Echo right here. The thing is, like, we can't actually block their creature, but we might be able to just kill them outright if we can draw enough cards with Duelist right here. So we knock out their hand, and we happen to redraw Fatal Push. So we have it all. Even if we didn't have the Fatal Push, we can just fire off Ancestral or fire off Time Twister, and then Duelist the Mind is going to have like 100,000 power, you know. So we could even Time Twist right here. We just keep racking up the score, but we're going to put them out of their misery and just smack them for a bunch of damage. And that was a really cool one. On to the next one. All right. Well, we have the Wombo combo right there. Hull Breacher plus Time Twister. So we'll have to see where it leads us. And I think... I don't know why I even kept that hand. I think we just drew the island right here. Yeah. Okay, I have no idea what I was doing there because we were completely bailed out by ripping an island there. That was an insane keep. I think I just looked at Hull Breacher and Time Twister. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. So here's the question. Do we kill their creature, which is very mana inefficient, or do we try and just go right into the Hull Breacher Time Twister? The thing is, the opponent is a blue deck. They might be just camping on counter spells, just going to make incubate tokens with the shark, you know. So I decided just to play it patient, you know, like let's take down the shark and just take our time against a blue deck, you know. So, all right, opponent drops another Goyf. We rip a Fatal Push, which has been really strong in all these games. Like really, really enjoying that. All right, passing back to the opponent. All right, another Goyf. I'll go ahead and link another Goyf video for some timeless shenanigans. I think it helps that I've played a lot of timeless because I've played like all these cards in, you know, Psychic Frog, Nether Goyf, all these kinds of things. Fatal Push. New things are the Power 9 though. So going to Fatal Push Frog, I was hoping that maybe prompted, you know, if they countered spelled that, then we get to resolve Minsc Boo. Going to attempt to Hull Breacher right here, and it resolves by, for some miracle, I don't know what the opponent has, but somehow we've managed to slam Hull Breacher. So, but Duress was an incredible draw. So now we can try and see if the coast is clear to Time Twister them. The opponent did have the answer though, so they're just going to snuff out the Hull Breacher. And we see they have a Fallen Shinobi in hand, counterspell, and go for the throat. So, had to watch out for Fallen Shinobi. It's really strong, especially they can ninjutsu it off the Nether Goyf. So I'm actually going to take the counterspell. And the thing is, they only have one black source. So if we make a hamster and keep it on defense, they can't like go for the throat, untap Fallen Shinobi. They have to. They have to do it like the slow way, like, you know, wait a whole turn, go for the throat, then wait a whole turn. You know, so we basically made them waste their whole turn. Because the thing is, Nether Goyf has to be unblocked for Fallen Shinobi to do its thing. So now the thing is, we missed. You know, we had to pass through a window to make a new hamster. The opponent can kill it, and then we won't have one right now. So trying to think of what to do. And expressive iteration is always like a good thing, just to get things going. Alright, so we're going to fire it off. Alright, the opponent is going to go for the throat in case we draw like a counter spell, you know, so it makes sense they would do that. Alright, so there's another Punisher. So we have Memory Lapse and Shieldred. And it happened to be perfect such that we actually have enough mana to cast Shieldred this turn. So we can keep Memory Lapse for the draw 7 turn, get rid of the Triumph. And the thing is, I'm just trusting that I have an untapped source. Because the thing is, this is like our most sketchy fetch land right here. Turns out we had one untapped land for it to get the Taiga, and can slam Shoulder right here. So I'm very happy about that. That does a couple things. It gives us a defender for the Nether Goyf so they can't Fallen Shinobi us, and of course sets up like the combo we're trying to pull off. So we're gonna ding them for some damage with Shieldred, and let's see what the opponent. You know, the opponent has nothing, so they haven't found the 5th land for Fallen Shinobi and just haven't quite found the right configuration. So we are like incredibly safe right here with Memory Lapse, and decide to lead with Dack Fayden. Mathing it out, if we attack them for 8 right here, and then Dack them with an active Shieldred, that's, and then they draw like they're just dead, you know, because that's 8 damage and then like another 6. That's assuming Shieldred lives, of course, you know. So going to lead with Dak Faden because that is just like a kill right there. If we Dak targeting them. All right, so the opponent's going to 3 steps ahead. I was going to memory lapse. I'm like, you know what? Let's just go out in style. We'll let them counter and then just time twister them. So we're going to ding them for a ton of damage. And yeah, the opponent has seen the writing on the wall. We're going to annihilate their life total with Shieldred and move right on to the next game. So 6-0, my very first Vintage Cube draft. Like, this is just awesome. This is how, you know, you get hooked on this kind of stuff. So, all right. Let's see if we can go all the way. Still have a few chances, though, if this one doesn't work out. All right, so green-white Surveil from the opponent. Not going to fire off Expressive Iteration. We just don't have, like, any zeros. Like, if we had some Moxes and Mishra's Baubles, then might have gone for it, but no way right there. All right. So, the opponent could have, like, a Miscalc or something. I'm just going to toss the Dak Faden out there. Maybe it's going to eat a counterspell. Don't mind if it does, but going to fire off its +1 targeting us. And what do you know? We drew Echo of Eons. So the question, so we're obviously discarding that. The question is, what else do we discard? And you know, not certain. This is like a creature matchup, so I'm going to get rid of the Flame Slash because Vampiric Tutor can grab us Hull Breacher to go with our Wheel of Fortune. So, but it turns out it is a creature matchup. So there's a Felia, which is not super good in this current board state, you know, but it can attack Dak Faden, so it's going to do that. It's going to knock 2 loyalty off, and they're going to pass to us. I set an upkeep stop for Vampiric Tutor because I can't even remember why I set it. Oh, it's to get Hull Breacher, yeah, because then we can, yeah, if we draw Hull Breacher, we can hold up Hull Breacher on their turn and then go for the wheel, you know. So that was why I set the stop for Vampiric Tutor to get to get that going. So I guess we could have just Dak Faden and drew it that way, you know, so I guess you didn't need necessarily get that fancy. Alright, so what do we discard? This is actually sort of tricky. Decide to ditch land and Expressive Iteration and just hold up a Braid for safety, like if they throw something particularly nasty out there. But the thing is, Felia still can't kill Dak Faden, so Teferi Time Raveler is really annoying. So with its passive, it shuts down all counterspells and an instant speed play for us. So we could toss a Hull Breacher out there. Then they would just -3 Teferi, bounce it back, and like that does not really progress anything for us. So I'm really agonizing what to do. I'm like, dang it, that like messes up our whole plan. So I in the end, after thinking about it, I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna memory lapse it, just buy ourselves some time, and really sort of set back their development, you know. But Teferi Time Raveler is a problem. So, all right. And going to try and figure out what to do here. So, going to lead with the Dak Plus. And
I overheard some juicy.
You know what? I actually just missed something here. I could have played Hull Breacher plus Dak on them and then played Wheel of Fortune, because it would have generated treasures off the first. Yeah. So, assuming they don't have any like pitch counters like Force of Will. So, going to have to take this other route. I'm just realizing there was another line right there. So, trying to figure out what to do. End up deciding to pitch a Braid plus Duress. Honestly, should have just pitched like Oculus and kept Duress, because that's just like really strong in this scenario. But I'm going to just put an important Oculus into play. It's just going to give their Teferi a lot of things to deal with, and also Dak still going off. So like, it's going to put a lot of pressure on board, though we could have basically like really hammered them with Hull Breacher last turn had I thought of that line. So, but we are where we're at. So now the opponent is going to tank because they don't like what they see. So they're going to Teferi and presumably bounce the Oculus. Yeah, because that's going to take us a little bit of recharging to be able to cast it. But Dak Faden will get us there pretty quick. All right, Mox Sapphire from the opponent into Tarmogoyf. And I was really hoping they'd tap out for something just we don't care about like that. Like, if they're holding up blue mana, I would have been way more nervous. It's at this point where I'm like, okay, I eventually realized the line of tossing out Hull Breacher, plusing Dak, targeting them. They're going to not draw 2 cards and just discard. We get the treasures, which is now enough to fire off Wheel of Fortune. So they pitch a couple cards. They do grow the Goyf, we can't discount that. But then we're just going to hammer them with Wheel of Fortune right here. And it's going to just be absolutely devastating for them. And so we just got to see what we draw, and it turns out that's enough. And with that win, not only was it a clean 7-0, also ranked up to Mythic. So pretty cool for the first Vintage Cube draft. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to see even more nonsense, please consider subscribing. And if you already subscribed, thank you for your support. Your engagement with the channel helps me know what the people want. Thank you.